collection of ancient Christian books. One of them was the previously unknown Gospel of Thomas.
The Gospel of Thomas is a collection of sayings of Jesus that is very much like Q in a lot of respects.
Thomas contains no stories of birth or crucifixion or resurrection. Just 114 sayings attributed to Jesus. Some of them even match the wisdom scholars think was in Q.
The Gospel of Thomas provides us with concrete evidence that the early Christians did produce documents that contain simply a collection of Jesus' sayings.
And the evidence would suggest that the Gospel of Thomas also may have been composed very early.
If Q was indeed written down early, then its sayings should be closer to the real words of Jesus. By blending together Matthew's and Luke's versions, scholars can make a guess at what the words of this lost gospel were, words crafted for the peasants of Galilee.
No good tree produces rotten fruit, and no bad tree produces good fruit. When someone takes your coat from you, let them have your shirt as well.
Since it predates Mark, Q might be the closest we'll ever get to the words of Jesus. But our reconstruction of Q comes from Gospels written in Greek. Jesus spoke a dialect of Aramaic. If we can recreate what the people of Galilee actually heard, perhaps we can get even closer to understanding Jesus. The Gospel of Matthew's sermon has Jesus speaking 110 verses on a hilltop. Luke's account has him saying just over 30 verses on a level patch of ground. Neither of these versions gives us a historically accurate picture of the way Jesus taught. To create that picture, we first have to learn the language of Jesus.
Jesus' first language would have been Aramaic, and we assume that he did all or most of his teaching in Aramaic.
Aramaic is a Semitic language somewhat similar to Hebrew. A few isolated Middle Eastern villagers still speak a form of Aramaic, but the language Jesus spoke is long dead. No one has ever found an early version of a gospel written in Aramaic.
And many people seem to think that the authentic Bible is the King James Version or the New American or the Revised Standard Version. But these, of course, are translations of translations. So to try to reconstruct beneath these various layers back to the Aramaic is a very interesting challenge.
Good. And do not put us to the test. I like this line, do not put us to the test.
Dr. William Fulco is one of the few people on Earth who is fluent in ancient Aramaic. We asked him to work with Hayati Akbash, the man who was attempting to play the part of Jesus with unparalleled historical accuracy. The goal is to recreate some passages from the lost gospel known as Q in their original language, words that could be the original sayings of Jesus.
Habibu la'areachom, Heativu lasani'echom, Bariku limkalalechom, Tsolu limaharain lachom.
Solu limaharain lachom. And did you know that?
Over a one-week period, Hayati strives to master what Jesus' words sounded like.
It's a Q, and it's pronounced way in the back of the throat like a qa. Limqa lalechom. Limqa lalechom. It sounds way back in the throat.
Limqa lalechom.
I think the process of teaching Hayati the Aramaic lines that he will use in the film demonstrates the various layers of trying to get back to some sort of authentic presentation of what Jesus may have said and how he said it.
Ancient Aramaic poses much tougher challenges than working with a modern language. In English, there are thousands of words for colors. In Aramaic, there are almost none. You say green by saying plant-like. And the Aramaic concept of time makes it tricky to translate the line, "Give us this day our daily bread."
Literally in Aramaic, food of us, of tomorrow, give us on day this or that. Yeah. There is no present and future in Aramaic. So the whole idea of time is very different in Aramaic. What it means is every day what we need every day. We say because, since, then, cause and effect. Aramaic in particular does not do that. And it's up to the reader to make the connection of how this relates to that.
To move from English to Aramaic is to step into the mind of Jesus.
He was addressing human beings who needed to understand what he was saying to them. How would you say this in English? Love your enemies.
Love your enemies.
Love your enemies. Now say it in Aramaic. Habibu la'areichom.
Habibu la'areichom.
These are the very sounds that might once have come from Jesus' lips.
Bless those who curse you. Barichu
limchalalechom.
Yeah, because it stands out like a sore thumb. You bless those who curse you.
Barichu limchalalechom.
And pray for those who treat you badly. Solu limaharayin lachom.
Solu limaharayin lechom.
Yes, see how the difference?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I feel it too in my heart.
Habibu la'areichom. Hayativu la'sanieichom. Barichu limchalalechom. Solu limaharayin lechom.
This was what the villagers of Galilee might have heard when they listened to Jesus.
That statement, love your enemies, is so profound, powerful, and different that it explains why people were so intrigued and curious and interested in Jesus.
Jesus lived in an age when the Empire of Rome exercised its power with brutality, where revenge was quick and deadly.
So much of the teaching of Jesus is very unconventional. For example, if somebody strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other cheek.
The words of Jesus that we are most familiar with today are the parables. Stories, riddles about the kingdom of God. One of the most famous is the parable of the mustard seed.
With what can we compare the kingdom of God? It is like a mustard seed, the smallest of all the seeds on earth. Yet it grows up and becomes the greatest of all shrubs.
To our modern ears, this is a strange metaphor, but first-century peasants would not have found it unusual.
We know mustard is a spice, but in antiquity, mustard was known as a weed. It was invasive. You didn't want it in your fields because you couldn't get rid of it. So by comparing the kingdom of God to a mustard seed, Jesus raises the possibility that the kingdom might be subversive, invasive, hard to control, difficult to get rid of.
Peasants in Galilee would have known what a mustard seed does in a way in which we today simply don't.
Jesus drew on imagery from peasant life.
No one, after lighting a lamp, puts it under the bushel basket, but on the lampstand, and it gives light to all in the house.
He speaks about life in the dark, windowless houses of peasants. He tells stories whose context we have now lost.
What woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one of them, does not light a lamp, sweep the house, and search carefully until she finds it?